We did it! You campaigned for it, you fought for it, you voted for it, and now it has arrived.
Bum, 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 bum. Ah, Jeremy Wait, this isn't 2019 or 2017. No, this is 2024. And we just had a new election just happen as of last night. As it turns out, Keir Starmer is going to be our new Prime Minister, and the Tories have faced the worst wipeout electoral-wise since 1997.
Worse even.
A great deal about what just happened, really. And with the elections that have occurred in Europe and many other countries veering to the right, we've veered more or less to the centre or the centre left, which it catches you by surprise, I would say. But we're going to be talking about that into great lengths on this particular podcast that isn't BBFC VMPAA. It's going to be like we did last time when we were talking about the UK elections, which I dubbed as Parliament versus Congress. But we'll also talk about the American elections and the upcoming French ones as well. But overall, the UK one, let's get started. Overall, this is Mark, Skinny E Media, and this is this is Rob Bavister. He has a different name under X, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. And I can't fucking believe you actually called it X, you simp.
Well, that's what it is, technically. Even got rid of the trade name. I don't want to use it anymore.
Who gives a shit? I'm not giving Musk the satisfaction of calling it that, all right? I'm not. But, let's not get bogged down with that.
Oh, no worries there. It seemed like in this instance, he didn't have as much interference or Russian interference in this election like they did with some of the others as of late. But as it turns out, as we speak in this moment, it's about 123 or 121 Tory and about 410 Labour, with 4 seats going also to Remain, 4 seats for Green, 9 seats for the SNP, 4 for Plaid Cymru, and select others for like the DUP and stuff, and quite a sizable number of votes for Liberal Democrats. I mean, I didn't think they would have a chance.
That might be tactical voting. I mean, that's the most they've ever had in living memory, if I'm not mistaken.
From what I was told on Sky and several other outlets, this is correct. So overall, I knew Keir Starmer and Labour were going to have a sizable number of votes in their favour, but I didn't know in this instance the Tories were going to do that bad. And even with Lib Dems doing so well and SNP doing quite poorly, I thought Reform was going to do like a hell of a lot better, but they only just managed to get 4 seats. And I know Nigel Farage easily won in Clapton.
First past the post is rather punishing for smaller parties.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to go on record.
Well, I think they've just won I think they've just gained another seat, Basildon South and East Thurrock.
And this is for Reform, right?
Yeah, it's just come in on, just seen it on my Twitter timeline from 1 minute ago. The page Britain Elects has just advised me of it. They got that with 30.8% of the vote. Labour came in second with 30.5%. But, for each seat, it's winner takes all.
Unfortunately, that's one of our downfalls. I support a proportional representation system like every other country has, even Australia has. And Australia doesn't make a big fuss on the political scene like America or China and Russia does. I'll pretend I didn't hear you farting, but nonetheless,
I didn't fart. I think that was my seat squeaking.
Oh, never mind. I'm going to be, adding humor on this one because the mood I'm getting at from this whole election that just happened is not so much misery like with Trump versus Biden. I'm getting a bit more jovialness. Maybe that's just
Yeah, because because the Tories just got freaking destroyed. How could you not be happy? I mean, obviously, a Tories voter, you're not going to be happy, but if you're a Tory voter, I think you're a bit of a cunt.
Oh,
I shouldn't actually say that because my dad votes Tory, and I think my brother does as well. So I mean, you don't know who my brother actually votes. He's really like, I always get mixed signals from him. But uh, but I mean, frankly, if you're still voting a Tory off, then I mean, you get what you deserve. Yeah, but yeah. So it's pardon.
On a family level, I won't disclose what my grandmother and family I don't really talk to that much yet, but very likely they probably vote for Labour. Maybe they don't really have a high regard for the austerity state. But you were saying,
Oh Christ. Oh, what was I saying? Well, my only reaction to the freaking election as it's coming is, oh fucking yes, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, in your face, you fucking Tory cunts. Wait 14 years for this shit, and I'm to put up the last couple elections, especially the 2015 and 2019 one, and watch those smug gits just, and now gits just being, well, gloating at their freaking victory and just, oh. And that's 2015. That's before they bloody decided to go that stupid Brexit campaign. I mean, already those stupid austerity policies. I wasn't actually that. It's ironic because I wasn't actually that upset when Tories got re-elected in 2010, mainly because they were in a coalition with Lib Dems, and I voted for Lib Dems back then. So I was kind of happy to see them actually be in power, some sort of power, and I really didn't like the new Labour government of Blair and Brown, mainly for the Iraq War and their neoliberal, neoconservative policies, their warmongering, their control orders, and I guess I could just say their pro-Americanism. So yeah, I was kind of happy to see him punish it. But man, of course, being 13 years, I'd almost forgotten what it was like to be on a Tory government, and with Lib Dems in, they'd probably keep him. And they did sort of go on the basis they weren't like the Thatcher and Major types, so yeah, worry about. But as time went on, yeah, the true colours came out, and it's just finally. I mean, it could be said it's too little, too late because stupid Brexit policies came through, and now we've left the EU with Starmer having no intention to rejoin, even though he bloody should. Which I don't know how much stock I put in any of Starmer's election pledges, but where I was going. But fucking hell, 14 years of austerity and Brexit, and this country's been battered by it. It's just fucking glad to see the back of them. It sucks that it didn't get wiped out as badly as some polls predicted, where they'd have been destroyed so utterly they wouldn't even be able to be considered the opposition. But they're only 50 seats ahead of the Lib Dems. So I mean, that's a turn for the books. That could be interesting to watch in the future. I mean, maybe Lib Dems could start like growing their presence in Parliament, and God, I mean, maybe they could become the official opposition. I mean, I doubt it. I'm probably this could just be a lucky one-off for them, but nonetheless, well, rambling a bit. Over to you.
no, but it's unlikely on my end because while we like to think we are sort of multi-party constitutional monarchy in the UK, most of the parties that have the most control tend to be Labour and Tory, on a slightly lesser level than like US, where everything has to be versus Democrat and versus Republican. There's a little bit more leeway involved, but at the end of the day, it's the Labour and Tories that call the shots. I even thought when 2019 occurred, it was Boris Johnson who had the upper hand. I thought this is going to be the end of the Labour Party for good because they just couldn't really win anything, and they got their own little landslide. But I guess with a combination of Brexit showing its full effect, Ukraine and then COVID happen, that's
Can't
really
believe you
what
pronounce it
set
that
people
way.
off. It's just more interesting that way. COVID, it doesn't really matter. But yes, I think maybe it was a combination of those three things, particularly COVID and Brexit, that started. Sorry, I'm a bit lost for words here. That started um, shit starting for people. You couldn't go anywhere, restrictions. You couldn't go easily to France or Belgium unless you got like a particular visa. Because I know a lot of English people got holiday homes in Spain and stuff, and that was a bit of a hassle unless you went to the embassy,
And
consulate, took a plane.
And not just English people, but also Scottish people, Welsh people, and Northern Irish people as well.
Well, me being discriminatory is because they usually associate English people with wealth and Scottish people, and certainly Welsh and Northern Irish, as being poor. That's the very sort of Westminster mindset. Sorry, it's because I'm from the southeast, so you pick up on things. I'm ashamed at times to be from the southeast.
Well, I mean, I'm from the southwest, which is okay, but I mean, I'm lived in Wales for long enough, and my mum's Welsh, and I went to uni in Wales, and I probably lived on the Welsh border, so I mean, I just consider myself Anglo. Well, okay, first I'm just mostly British, but underneath that, I'm neither English nor Welsh. I'm just Anglo-Welsh.
Well, that's fair enough. In terms of like nationality and identity, that may have been a bit of a criteria, because if you flip it on, let's say, racial and ethnic lines, there is that aspect because over the past years, well, actually ever since like the 2010s, immigration has been the headline was every tabloid paper, even the Guardian. And it's getting on my nerves because there's a sort of racialized element about like they don't want people from the outside coming in. I think I understand the concerns because one of the problems that why so many people are against boats coming in from Dover, uh, people trying to get like them into hotels and asylum seekers and all that, is a lot of it has to do with Britain's problem with resource distribution. Everything seems to be concentrated in London. It's all concentrated to sort of a wealthy or upper middle class elite. It really isn't within touch of working class people, whites and blacks and Asians both. And then when you have that element of sort of, and I'm going to be offensive, poor white working class types competing for resources, and then you have outsiders coming in, then that usually leads to conflict and some sort of racial and ethnic tensions involved because they're trying to compete for the same thing as you. And that is one of the reasons why we've been seeing sort of right-wing parties, like with Rassemblement National in France, getting so much of a stronghold.
Yeah,
and reform.
Mark, yeah, Keith. Or more likely, the rich fat cats and the bankers just basically fuck the economy over, steal all the money and everything, and leave us basically in the lurch and everything, as they did back in 2008, and hasn't been rated since. And they pass the blame on to immigrants and minorities and everything because it's a great scapegoat that people will suck up. I mean, there's a lot of us, like, well, yours truly, I like to think, who don't buy into that crap. And but of course, I mean, some people are just gullible, and this may be quite offensive too, but I'm gonna have to say it. People who are poorly educated are likely to buy into these blatant, hysterical, fear-mongering scapegoating. It's the same shit Hitler did in the freaking in 30s Germany. I'm not saying like any of these people are like Hitler, although some may be getting a little bit too close. But again, they blame it on them. I mean, it's like it was a big thing we talked about all throughout the 2010s, and hell, we probably talked about it in the 2000s as well. I mean, the Tories came in saying they would cut down immigration. Apparently, actually more immigrants came in. But I mean, it doesn't fucking make any odds. I mean, whether or not you think about immigration, the sad truth of that, well, not sad truth, but the truth of the matter is, No one's going to stop immigration. People are going to want to come here for whatever reason. I mean, I don't really get it, but they're going to want to come here, and it's going to probably cost far more resources and far more time and far more complicated trying to stop them from coming in than it is just to let them fucking in and just assimilate them and get them working here and paying taxes and contributing to the economy, which is what they do. I mean, and to be honest, as a working citizen of the UK, or as a working British person, I cannot think of any way in which my life would be in any way benefit, improved or benefited if all the immigrants in the country were suddenly got rid of. I mean, I'm just trying to think in what way it could be it would have proved me. I mean, a lot of the services and the shops that I go to are run by by immigrants, and my God, they offer a good service. They they operate during hours that they just work to extents that most native-born British people won't. And it just reminds me of that old Doug Stanhope skit where he says he talks about about immigration, and he talks about people who complain about immigration. It's like, well, how has it affected you personally? It's like it doesn't. People just told it affects them personally, but they're just being taken for a ride. You know, the reason why they are making ends meet is because, as I've mentioned, the rich people just keep siphoning off all the money and leaving us with nothing.
No, but it's true. You know, trying to make for competition for resources, and I think that's probably a bigger factor, probably more so than you hate them because they have dark skin, is what's contributing to a lot of the sentiment. One thing I will sort of congratulate the voters in the UK on doing, at least for the majority of the constituencies, is that they made the argument that it was the Tories that made you broke and have made you suffer economically, rather than it just being it's the migrants and the migrants and the migrants. That message sort of works in sort of poor seaside towns, predominantly white, not very well developed compared to the other generations. Because the problem I was fearing was that reform was going to win landslides in many sort of areas, particularly in my area, which is within Kent. I'm not going to tell you where I live because in case people might stalk or threaten me, I won't tell you where you live, Cardiff, but
I
we
live in
won't be
Cardiff,
specific. But yes, they made it about economic issues. When you start getting into sort of cultural stuff, that's when I get a little bit uneasy because I know, oh dear. But I'm sure probably maybe migrants, who are in France or Germany right now, are watching Britain's sort of success at this moment of thinking, well, I don't want to be in Marine Le Pen land or Jordan Bardella land or where the AFD has a stronghold. I will go to England, even if it's on a boat.
or Wales or Scotland or Northern Ireland.
That too. They might be tempted. So don't be too surprised if the Daily Mail might say, "Oh, because Keir Starmer won, all these migrants are going to be coming over here and stuff." So
They're gonna fucking God Christ, they're gonna say all sorts of shit. The fact that it's ridiculous for all this stuff at the Daily Express and Daily Mail are gonna start pissing them at Starmer, even though Starmer could not. They're gonna try to portray him as some radical leftist, even as though I know as someone who is left wing, Starmer is anything but. A lot of his cabinet might be a bit more left leaning. I mean, Angela Rayner is clearly a bit more left leaning than Starmer is, but pardon me. But that doesn't change the fact that, I mean, he's clearly, if just going by what he's been saying, his policies he's laid down, which, to be honest, I don't know how much stock you really put in that, because I think he was saying whatever he could to get the gammons and the boomers off his back so they wouldn't do to him what they did to Jeremy Corbyn. And may actually, now that he's in, actually say, actually, we're going to do things that are actually quite based. Maybe some people are being naively optimistic, but hope springs eternal and all that. God, I'm rambling again.
But on my end,
I wouldn't write
I'm
the French off too much. They've got the second round of their parliamentary election to go to, and I think a lot of the other parties are dropping out to not split the vote against the right Marine Le Pen's party, because there's that far left party in France as well, which is getting quite a lot of support and getting quite a lot of the vote. I'm on Wikipedia, so I'm just going to 24
yeah,
French
La France
legis.
Insoumise, or LFE, is the party you're thinking of. I actually wish
Yeah,
Mélenchon the best of luck. He's got a tough battle ahead of him because,
no, the New Popular Front.
Yes, it's a collection of left-wing parties taking the stage and the influence, and it also
If you look at
includes
it,
the
if you
Greens
look at
and
it,
Parti Socialiste.
he's barely just below. He barely just came in below the National Rally. Of course, they're united with the Union of the Far Right, but to be fair, as a split, it's not going too badly. I mean, okay, National Rally got 37 seats, New Popular Front got 32. I think France is the only parliament on continental Europe that still uses first past the post, which is something we need to get on in a few minutes. But the other ones might drop out, and so the leftists all vote for the New Popular Front, and therefore might actually be not at least reduce the soften the National Rally, the far right's any victory they have. Let's face it, they thought. I mean, in the 2022 midterm elections in America, they thought it would be a red wave, and it was a red trickle. Although that's mainly to their stupid behavior and policies, but that's a bit off. It's not really off topic, but it's not really worth talking about. So that's a thing.
Easily.
I mean, okay, I'll let you reflect on that.
Well, if I was French and we still were European Union, I would certainly vote for the NFP. My sort of fears and concerns on that are, like Britain and America, France, the third Allied power, is quite regimented on class and cultural lines. And I've talked to a lot of French people in my time, and many of them mainly just support Le Pen and Rassemblement National and the little party called Reconquête under sort of guise of nostalgia, because they think, no, they would bring French values all together. One thing I will congratulate that Rassemblement National does, that the Tories and Republicans do, is that they don't sort of go in on sort of economic free market neoliberalism. They actually sometimes are perhaps intervention economy, Keynesian socialist, almost like a sort of Mélenchon, NFP, La France Insoumise, or even like Corbynism, because they believe in helping out working people, but at the same time, that
as long as those working people aren't black or Arab.
Yes, and that's the problem I've got, because maybe it's wrong for me to say this, but I've got a vested interest in France, and I don't want to see that sort of element of hostility sort of take fold. I know they're going to probably be in the higher rankings. They may even win absolute majority on Sunday, but it doesn't make me feel easy, because I know, France says we don't see color. We are a Universalist Republic. You do. Just shut up about it. Just admit you don't like Arabs and Muslims taking over your country. And this is coming from someone who doesn't, I'm going to say it. I don't like Sharia law. I'm not Islamic, but I don't look Muslim. So, but I look Muslim to people, so that's probably my fear.
Well, I mean, there's enough to fear about when the far right get a surge and everything. I think, like I say, I mean, France has still got an opportunity to turn this around and do what they can to try and try and stop it and everything. But hang on a second, where was the? Oh, he's trying to frustrate and hamper their successes, and Well, let's not say it couldn't happen. When is the second round of that election? Oh,
Sunday.
oh God, right.
It's
Well, we'll
coming
see what
near,
happens.
and
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But was something I did mention the first past post system because I did need to mention that because we've seen the seats won by each parties. Have you actually seen the actual votes they've received in this country's election?
not quite. Most has been made about what kind of seats that they won, but I am aware that
Right.
Reform won 14%.
Something like, yeah. I mean, it's kind of Labour. I mean, they only won currently 9.7 million votes, which is a lot less than they won in the last election. But as it stands, not all the votes are finished counting yet. There's one more constituency that is to be called. We probably won't know it until tomorrow. They only currently standing on less than 34% of the vote.
That is kind of small. When you look at it on the surface, it does seem a bit marginal. That's only about 20% higher than Reform.
Well, it is. I mean, right now, 1 divided by 650. But I mean, wow, the Tories are controlling 18% of Parliament the Tories are around 18.5% of Parliament with just slightly under 24% of the vote. 411 divided by 650. Labour are currently carrying 63% of Parliament on 34% of the vote. I mean, what are seven. I mean, Lib Dems are on just over 12% of the vote. 71 divided by 650. Oh, yeah. I mean, they're closer to their proportional. This is the closest they've been to being proportionally represented in them. They're just under 11% of Parliament and over 12% of the vote. Because let's face it, they have been screwed hard by first past the post. God knows how long. But I mean, this is it. It's like this party that barely even got more than a third of all the votes cast are now freaking controlling like 2/3 of all the seats in Parliament. And yeah, I know it's like a party I voted for anyway. Yeah, I did vote Labour at the end of the day. In my constituency, may as well. But as far as democracy goes, it ain't good. It ain't great.
No, I don't think so. I'm probably more worried about the US election because that's going to be hanging by a needle thread, which we'll get onto in another moment after
Well, that
Biden's.
doesn't use. Well, that has its own problem. That has its own electorate problem with the electoral college. I mean, because twice in my lifetime, someone's won an election despite getting less votes than their opponent. And for all France's problems I mentioned earlier, bearing in mind they're using the presidential system, whereas all the other republics in Europe still use a parliamentary system where the president is a figurehead. The French president is the leader, but they don't have an electoral college. Their president is completely elected through popular vote, and that
Yep.
is democratic. And let's face it, all three times that a Le Pen or whenever one of far righters has run in the presidential election, they have been fucking smashed.
Usually the law averages predicts that could be the case again, because they often form something called the Republican Front. Now it's called, Front Populaire, to try to combat the more extreme candidate from winning, which in turn, unfortunately, leads France to have a reputation for picking centre-right or centre-left candidates who don't really speak to a vast majority of people, because I've taught even, not just to like Le Pen types who are from rural sticks, but you get like students and stuff. And just like here, they all support, Jeremy Corbyn. Over there they support, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, May 1968. See what I did there?
Or in bloody America, they try and feel the burn with Colonel Sanders.
Exactly, and only for them to be relegated to the side or ignored or lambasted unfairly by the media. As our biases show, we are not the typical British voter. We're too left wing. Well, at least Rob is, but yeah, it
To
doesn't
be
make you
fair,
feel.
again, as I've mentioned, Mark, I mean, I think the average British voter is, well, not the average Brit, but Britain as a society does lean further to the left than everyone tends to think. But again, the first past the post system kind of screws us out of that. So it gives off a veneer of a more right wing leaning country than we actually are.
Well, I suppose there, but even on the cultural facade, many people who are not from the UK will still think, "Oh, you drink, has the stiff upper lip, you drink the tea, oh, you love the Queen and stuff." But
And
I
and
don't
they
care.
think we're all a bunch of alcoholics who don't go to church.
I mean, that is kind of true. Britain has one of the highest rates of irreligion throughout Europe. Ireland and Poland looks more pious than us, but
Most of Europe is most of Europe is quite secular in comparison to Russia, uh, America, and just generally places outside of Europe. And we're definitely more. Europe in general has a reputation of being more secular and irreligious than America is. Britain, of course, being no exception. It's a lot of people say it's quite ironic that Britain, which doesn't have a separation of church and state, is so secular that the members of government have to really downplay or not talk about their religious beliefs, whereas America, which does have a separation of church and state, is so religious that the politicians have to really bang on about their religious beliefs and just go on and on about it. And God forbid you ever be seen as an atheist in American politics. Fuck, no chance.
well, one thing to the credit of the US is that there's a decreasing number of people who are into sort of organized religion, but those numbers pale in comparison to other Anglophone countries. As far as I'm concerned, religion still has the upper hand in terms of voting measures, at least in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Actually, weirdly enough, Northern Ireland is somehow more pious than the Republic of Ireland, even though both parts of that country banned abortion for a long time and gays couldn't get married. Italy is another country, and certainly Poland, where religion certainly is a big factor. If Giorgia Meloni said, "fuck the Pope," she would not have been winning. But because she played on to sort of old people's concerns, because Italy's quite an old country, it's kind of poor. They had the migrant crisis and stuff is why it's skewing the way it's skewing. And then Poland has always been sort of very Catholic and very homogenized, that there are no black or Arab people in Poland. So that explains for its demography.
A lot of the alt-right or neo-fascists and everything seem to be really liking Poland for that very reason. It's not a good look. I mean, a lot of the Polish migrants in Britain, as you're aware, we've had quite a lot, and always welcome here. Say a lot of them, they don't want to go back to Poland because of the horrendous religious nature of it. I reckon that is for the half a century of brutal communist repression of religion in Eastern Europe. That's why Eastern Europe is probably on the average slightly more religious than Western Europe or anything, even though it does have also a reputation for lax attitudes towards drinking and pornography and prostitution.
That does make me wonder myself too. But then again, you could say that even about the United States, for a country that prides itself on Judeo-Christian values. They've got some of the highest porn consumptions in the world. Like in Los Angeles and places like that have the headquarters for like Vivid Entertainment and Playboy and shit like that.
Well, Well, now, for a country of our size, we in Britain hold our own when it comes to porn production and porn stars and porn consumption. We know how to beat our meat in Blighty. Oh, those seps won't frickin' show us up in that department. No, siree.
I think there's a little bit of irony there. In fact, you fellas are more censorious than the Yanks. You couldn't show hardcore stuff until like 2000, with James
I
Fallon
know it's
filing BBFC
again
and
though.
stuff. And then Theresa
I think
May,
that's
someone got confused with her name and the former Prime Minister.
well. I mean, like I say, I think that's just due to a minority basically having too much sway over us. I mean, it's pretty obvious once in '97, once the Tories got out of power and Labour took back over, and Mary Whitehouse's grip on culture was just waned, and then she died later on. And yeah, like I say, having lived through that, there was a great sense of liberation. Fucking glad all that shit back then is now over, because we do not need stuff like that showing us up in front of the rest of the world.
Well, there are certain other battles that people are also facing. I'm hearing a lot more people, and even in the UK, complaining about sex education being pornographic to our children.
They're talking about in America as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, I know America's going to take all the brunt of it, but I'm hearing that same sort of rubbish being said on British shores about, all this gender queer stuff, sex education being inappropriate, being taught in our schools. We don't want all this trans stuff being jammed in through our throats.
Yeah,
It's just that strain of social conservatism that makes me a little uneasy. I mean, I understand because I'm not big on most pornography. I made quite clear about my views on BDSM, incest. But to try to send this is one of the things I'm a little bit concerned about, because even though the Labour did win on social issues, you're still going to face that battle. It's the immigrants, it's the trans, it's the evil sex predators who are teaching you, how to wear a condom. We shouldn't be talking about that in schools. Well, how exactly are they learn sort of thing? They're going to look at Pornhub, which is certainly a lot more dangerous than a book that
well,
you'll
that's
read
true.
in year 6,
Something like that. I mean, I don't. Like I say, Starmer
year
said a
7.
few Starmer said a few things, and he said some transphobic stuff, which is not cool, man. Or anything. It makes me think I maybe shouldn't have voted for Labour or anything, because a lot of people are saying vote third party and everything just to show them as a protest and everything. And maybe I should have. Although my local MP and everything is apparently quite based, so I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think she is actually. Right. But again, I've always felt that Starmer is just putting on this attitude again to appease the gammons and the boomers. Again, we know many of his cabinet are going to be a lot more. Well, I don't want to say woke, because that's such a freaking tarred term nowadays, and every time I hear it, I just want to punch someone. But I mean, obviously, I don't. But I mean, like I say, Angela Rayner could probably whisper in his ear a bit and drag him to the left. And right now, with his 412 seats, which is the second largest majority they or any single party has ever really won, to the best of my knowledge, at least in living memory I have anyway, then gonna be able to do pretty much what they like, thing. So yeah, I mean, if he actually does hold swing further to the left than he actually let on, well, he's got the opportunity to do it now. So we'll see what I see.
Well, this is true on many levels. I think for most British voters, it's the economics that counts. Yeah, it goes back to the phrase Jimmy Carville said, "It's the economy, stupid."
Well, yeah, I mean, not to cut in or anything, although I am doing that. I mean, the biggest one, and it's an elephant in the room we haven't discussed, and don't know why we haven't discussed it, the NHS.
Well, a lot of parties always like to say we're thinking of our staff and the funding. But even that's still a bit of a grey area. But one thing I can just hope is that he tries to reduce waiting lists sometimes and also tries to help more funding and services for mental health as someone who's had issues with suicide ideation and so on and so forth. What's your take on
My take on what the NHS situation?
yes, because I know that one everyone promises, just like housing and jobs and transport, but they don't always deliver.
All I know is basically, again, 14 years of austerity, and the Tories have basically almost destroyed it, to the extent that during the COVID pandemic, all they could do was clap for our carers, and the service was completely overwhelmed. And it's no wonder we had the highest death toll from COVID in Europe. I mean, the service is practically dead. I'm just hoping Labour can just revitalise it, and I fucking hope they will. I mean, I don't like him too much and everything because he can be a class reductionist, but are you familiar with YouTuber Jonathan Pye?
I don't really know who he is. Most of when I get my political news, I watch TLDR,
Oh
Wisecraft, and
yeah.
Guardian and
Wait.
stuff.
TLDR. You shouldn't watch that cunt.
No,
Wait.
it's centrist. It's not right
Oh no,
wing.
sorry, no, wait, no. I mixed thing up with the actual Teal Deer, or the YouTuber Teal Deer. Oh god, he's a cunt. No, anyway, no, he's just he's sort of a comedian as such, which basically just, but also partly a political commentator, and he just sort of has this character of basically a news reporter who basically finishes a report or something, and when he thinks the cameras are off, just goes on one enormous rant. I suggest you look it up because I can't really do him justice. But one of the things he's basically talking about is just after the years and years of Tory policies. I mean, public services, all forms, are just practically coughing up, but the NHS is just the worst. It's on as death knells, and I don't know. I mean, they have to bring it back because we can't go without our NHS. Fucked if I'm. I mean, obviously the Tories are trying to sell it off, and now that they're out, hopefully that plan can be scuppered to the wind. But no, the thing, the pinch and everything. One of my colleagues recently at work, was having trouble getting treatment for cancer, and they actually ended up going to because she was a foreign worker. She had to go back to her own country for some sort of specialized treatment because she just couldn't get it over here. And of course, I remember at times I've had to wait ridiculous amount of time to go to the my local dental hospital for treatment for where I had to have some root canal fillings done. Yeah, but they've just been inundated because, again, and it just goes to show they are just flipping. Well, I'm saying underfunded, but the austerity measures were a case of raise taxes and cut spending. It's like, well, that's fucking shit. Yeah, I mean, I to be fair, I probably aren't really qualified to talk about this too much or don't know about it, but it's safe to say, I mean, the last 14 years they've not been kind to any service, but least of all, least kind they've been is to the NHS.
I would agree with that too, especially when I'm hearing rumors passing on through the mills about them trying to privatize or request people get like private options like Bupa, which that's just offensive. Not everyone has that kind of money to afford for necessary medical expenses and supplies. I mean, the US and even countries like India and South Korea have this problem where they just don't have the kind of political capital to help out on its citizens, either through gridlock or corporate interests. And to see that sort of thing unfold in the UK certainly bothers me. Um, you know, no. If someone needs a replacement for their spleen or open heart surgery, or even just to check to see if they have any problems with their mental health, or like you said, dental work, it shouldn't cost them an arm or a leg. I know when I got my glasses, my most recent ones, I usually had to do like a sort of private insurance option by paying like a copay and then trying to get the frames that I needed because I have high vision, like plus 8.75. So it's quite specific. And then I got my free ones when I was 16 or younger. If you go for that threshold, because then that means the NHS will cover it. If you're a little too old, you're on your own, pal. So it's like for optical and dental, and I had this problem with dental. I was in America at the time, and thankfully we had like a particular insurance option. I didn't even have to put a copay when I got my wisdom teeth removed, but that was fucking painful. One of the most painful experiences of my life.
Imagine.
That you know that's a slippery slope I don't want Britain to sort of fall into. I think amongst all political realms, tapping on people's sort of healthcare options is generally a no-no, just like it is when it comes to issues related to housing and employment, maybe even transport. Affect that, you affected every working class and middle class vote of all sorts, much divided based on political lines or even abortion. Maybe I'm a little bit in fairy hairy land, but I generally believe most Tories and most Labour generally don't like it when you mess with economic issues, especially considering the austerity state, Brexit and COVID affecting a lot of people's pockets and stuff. Because I'm now, as we've talked on a previous podcast, been seeing it within the realm of them being unable to afford for the necessary goods and expenses because of inflation, and also lorries of goods not being able to come in and through and out of EU borders, like through Calais and Dover, unless they have to file all this paperwork, and that takes a long time, and some of that food may also be rotting. Ooh. But just don't bring up Brexit when you talk to working class people. When you bring up all other issues, well, they can relate to it. I don't know what your take is
Well,
on
to be
that.
honest,
Just mumbling.
well, to be honest, if you check the polls again, public opinion on Brexit was turned against Brexit. At least according to that's what recent data would show. I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, they have access to Wikipedia or anything. Potential reascension of the United Kingdom to the European Union. Are you able to get onto Wikipedia right now?
Yes, I am.
Right. Now let me join it. Trying to think of this one. Well, potential reascension. Oh, it's a bit of one. Rejoin the.
Oh, here it is. Potential reaccession of the
Yeah,
UK
found
to
it.
the
Okay.
EU.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Just go down to opinion polling.
47%, according to Omnisys poll from the 2nd to the 3rd of July. 47% rejoin, stay out at 35%. That's a 12% lead. Neither is 18%. Well, I guess, but you also have to take into account certain factions. For example, if you're a student, you can't benefit anymore under the Erasmus program. Like if you want to do your masters, not possible unless you go through the channels and apply for an expensive visa. You have to go through criminal checks and so on and so forth. So not even possible if you want to study in Spain or Italy or Greece. And then for those people who've got like holiday homes in Spain and Portugal, they're also affected as well. And they usually tend to be a bit more conservative, but they thought, hey, I'll go down Mallorca or Tenerife because it's cheap and I'll get to be down the sun or bake my pink skin off. Nope, got to apply for a visa just like everyone else, just like the Americans and the Turkish and Russians, which I guess you're sort of on an equal playing field, but maybe to some extent, maybe this is a bit weird that I'm saying this, but I have conflicted views on Brexit because with the increasing power of the far right in Europe, I'm also kind of glad that we are not explicitly tied to all that shit in the European Parliament, because I'm not bringing Germany and France's problems to British shores. I don't really want, AFD and stuff having a say on Britain's future.
Well, I wouldn't. Yeah, that's a fair point. Also, on top of that, also could you also go on to click on holding a referendum as well?
This is just a website for this
Yes.
part of Vicky.
Yeah, on my Wikipedia. Go down the bit saying holding a referendum.
Well, I'm typed in holding a referendum on Google.
Don't type it in. I mean, on the Wikipedia page.
Oh, here we go. Savanta published a poll of 2065 British adults, which included a question regarding support for a UK referendum in joining the EU. A combined total of 65% were in favour of such a policy, and at some point in the future, while 24% were opposed. The question whether now is 22%, in the next 5 years, 24%, versus never at 24%, or I don't know, at 11%. As far as I'm concerned, I'm in that sort of don't know camp. Maybe I'm playing devil's advocate, but I'm guessing for you it's probably now or in the next 5
Yeah.
years.
Well, it's one of those two. But even though, I mean, in the next 5 years, on the same level as never, and now it's just slightly below never. Evidently, they want another referendum, and it seems like the desire to rejoin the EU is certainly outweighing the stay out. So it seems like public opinion is turning against Brexit. Clearly, the magic. Well, I mean, I'll say magic. Whatever spell the alt-right and like the Nigel Farage types cast back in 2016 has been fucking broken. So then again, that's the thing with being a con man and a grifter. You can only keep up for so long before you'll start to see your tricks.
Well, we hope so.
Well, I
I
mean, only
know
going
for
by.
him, he's got such a open presence on media and tabloids. You see his face everywhere, and you would think he's almost the prime minister, more so than Rishi Sunak or Keir Starmer. But I think by giving, sort of like you said, easy solutions to complex problems, it won't get you very far. Because then you'll be having to complain about the next thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's the thing though? Extremist populism and extremist right-wing populism only thrive during hard times. And let's face it, we've been going through hard times for quite some time now, ever since 2008, which is what caused Labour to lose the 2010 election. The Tories said they were going to fix it, and as sure as hell haven't fixed it. They've kind of fucking made things worse. Probably not helped by, well, like I say, first austerity, which has fucking hurt everyone. Brexit, which has sent this country down the shitter. And then, of course, there's their handling of COVID, which, oh, God, they were absolute, just the worst. I mean, not to say nothing of the fact that it was only towards the end of 2021 we heard about Partygate, that their support just collapsed and just gave Starmer this open goal which he's been sitting on for the past 3 years, no, 2.5 years, which just begs the question: why the fuck did Rishi call the election this soon? He could have waited until the end of the year. I know we're going to have one this year, but it would have been at the end of the year, and he would have kept him and his cronies in a job for just that much longer. Does he just see some looming disaster coming that he wants Labour to deal with, or is he just pissed off at his party members and thought this was just quicker than firing them all individually?
I think it's probably a damage control scenario. He saw that we're losing the battle. So let's just play this off as, we're going to doing it for the people. But he's probably figured himself, even though he did get re-elected in his constituency.
Oh, I'm pissed off about that.
Let's save face. I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of calls it off and becomes like some sort of public speaker or entrepreneur like he was in a past life, and goes back to America with his wife, who has had some issues with HM Revenue and Customs as being a non-domicile tax dodger. So, if I was very much a conservative person, I would have been not too happy that he did that either. But, I'm not. So I'm glad that he let, what's the word? Let the floodgates open. And oh boy, did we let that happen and say, fuck you to the Tories. However,
Well, it's like
long is another story.
I mean, he must have seen the bloody. Sorry, I'd start again. He must have seen the polls, right? The Tories have been demolished in them for ever since Partygate came to light. I mean, it was a time when they were polling so low that they said if they'd held an election at that point, they'd have only won 17 seats. I mean, part of me thinking is like, does he know something we don't know? Because he's just signed his own death knell, or death warrant, and I mean, let's say he's just wanted out, or if he's freaking lives in such a bubble that he didn't realize that his party was gonna get fucked. It reminded me, it was kind of even worse when Theresa May called that election in 2017, but she did it on a basis thinking she was going to get a majority, which polls actually suggested she would. It was only the YouGov poll that predicted the hung parliament. Then, of course, the results came in, and while they did win the most seats, she lost 12 seats or something, which took them from 330 down to 318, which lost the majority. And Labour increased their standings, not to anything sizable, but still. And it's like, oh man, they are going to fucking boot you in no time. I mean, it's like, all she had to do was sit on that. She would have been there till 2020. But then again, she shouldn't have been Prime Minister anyway, because Cameron should have stayed in there after the travesty of Brexit. But then again, he shouldn't have called the referendum anyway. So, I mean, I could keep going and going and going, but the idea was after 2015, the next election would have been in 2020. It would have been Cameron versus Corbyn. Love to see where that all gone. I reckon Corbyn could have beaten him.
Oh, I believe that. I mean, I was talking to people on the street at the time. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn, you go to like Glastonbury or any of those types of places, or anywhere where students and millennials, Gen Z congregates, they're all for the jazz. Unfortunately, I didn't really materialize because, unfortunately, when you live in an echo chamber, you don't see, hear, or views from the outside. If you go on the internet for a very long time, like I do, because I always seem to go on Reddit and refuse talking to people, just people on the internet, you think Nigel Farage and Jeremy Corbyn are the greatest politicians who ever lived, and if they won and were the leaders in office, everything, all the problems would go away and disappear, and everyone will be happily ever after. The end. They view that about Trump as well. They think he's God. And I'm like, really?
Well, I know. Yeah, I know there is a bit said about left social media echo chambers and everything. To be honest, a lot of the boomers and centrists were saying that after 2019 when they said, "We told you Corbyn wasn't electable. We need a centrist hack." And it's like, oh, fuck off. Well,
according to Reddit, no one wants a centrist hack.
Yeah, I know that, but we're not talking about Reddit and everything. But many people don't want a centrist hack. To be honest, like I say, Starmer didn't get that many votes. But again, that's kind of all academic now because Starmer because Labour won under Starmer and lost under Corbyn. So it's, I mean, can't exactly say we're winning. Us from the far left are winning the argument. But maybe in a more fairer system like proportional representation, it would be. But I mean, who knows?
Well, I'll put it
One
this
thing,
way.
well, okay, well,
Go on.
carry on. Actually, when I was going to talk about usually it's quite. Although I can't see results on Wikipedia just yet or regarding because it likes to tell you the results for each part of the election in each of the 4 home countries, and of course, obviously Wales Labour would have obviously dominated, and now we know in Scotland Labour have gone back to being the biggest party. It's taken it as a support for the SNP has collapsed, and but it looks like Labour might have also been the biggest party in England alone, which would be the only time they have done it since first time they did it since '97. I think the only time. There was one. I think David Mitchell once said that if it was just due to English votes, the Tories would have won every election prior to 1997. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, that most elections I know of, I mean, if you just look at the English votes, it's always been very pro-Tory. But I think in this case, that's not. They couldn't even. That's not even the case here. You look at basically all the seats won all throughout all the various regions, and of course Northern Ireland no because they don't run there. But Labour won the most seats in Wales, Scotland, North East England, North West England, South East England, South West England, the Midlands, all of them. I mean, it's just they say Tory landslide and Tory wipeout. Fucking right. And it's just my only problem. Again, as I said, the only problem I had was that it's not the wipeout wasn't as extreme as we bloody hoped because we thought the Tories would lose so many seats they wouldn't even be able to be the opposition.
Well, you are right on many levels, especially when you look at the numbers are concerned. But on face value, it certainly looks like a wipeout, and I think a large part of this, like I said, with Brexit and COVID and other effects lingering in the austerity state, it's the economics that really played into a lot of factors here, especially when you get outside of London or metropolitan cities, actually even within metropolitan areas. A lot of poverty, a lot of inequality and inaccessibility of sorts to high-paying jobs, and so on and so forth. Those are great unifiers, no matter what political stripe you're in. And I do feel sorry for those who live like in the north or even like in Brummie and Nottingham, Leicester, who don't have quite the sort of economic and class and social capital that you would find in the home counties like Hertfordshire, Great London, Surrey and Kent. Even reports about certain parts of Surrey and Hertfordshire and Kent suffering does break my heart because usually people always blame those types of areas as being all twee and middle class and people drinking Pimm's and going seeing the bowls. But
if you actually, again, looking at the results, the only places where the only 2 regions in the whole country where the Tories came close to what Labour were winning was in the east of England and the southeast. In the east of England, it was 27 seats to Labour, 23 to Tories. Southeast was 36 to Labour, 30 to Tories. Everywhere else in the country, absolute landslide, absolute bitch slap and decimation and ass kicking of the highest order. Well, hell, in the southwest, it was a Lib Dems who just came in just short of behind Labour, 22 to their 24. I mean, make of it what you will, but I mean, I'm just saying, those are the facts, those are the numbers.
Well, I actually welcome it. Any other party that isn't Tory, it makes me happy on a sort of electoral platform. I know Cornwall. I don't know if you visited there many times, but I have, usually on holidays.
Cornwall.
It's a bit of an unusual beast because they always seem to go for like Lib Dems. But I know some of it might have to do with regionalist ideologies because Cornwall likes to think of itself as like a mini Cambry. They even have their own language. Put their signs in
Well,
their
it
own
was
language.
it's a Celtic part, and it was historically once part of Wales until the Anglo-Saxons stole it. But that's getting a bit topic. Yeah, I've been to Cornwall a few times. My gran lived there recently. Well, for a few years of her life. I even went down there once to walk around Bodmin Moor to get an idea of a place for the book that I was about to write, and ended up writing that very summer. So yeah, it's a nice place.
Well, it's certainly one of my favourite areas in the United Kingdom. It's got a sort of unique culture of its own, and you can't go wrong with a Guinness's pasty every now and again, and clotted cream scones.
To say nothing of their freaking ice cream.
It rivals that of the Italians. You said it perfectly there, but
Well,
it does upset
well,
me.
not just Cornish, just the whole that whole area, including Devon and the neighbouring places. All their dairy products are just the absolute best. I mean, freaking hell, yeah, just the ice cream is nice. Although one thing I also say nice about Cornwall and other places, their cider.
Well, it's a Westcote tradition to take pride in their own cider, especially when they
That's where I went.
from those scallywag apples, fermented with about 5% ABV. I don't know if that's a good enough West Country dialect for you, speaking as you're someone from Gloucestershire, right? Is there a difference between like Bristolians and Cornish and Devonians? Please tell me, because I know you're from that part of the country.
Sorry, I'm not sure I quite caught your. Could you repeat the question, please?
As someone from the West Country, is there a conflict between like Bristolians and like people from Devonshire and Cornwall? Or
I don't know for sure. I mean, from Gloucestershire, there's a bit of a divide between people from that sort of area and Bristol, but nothing too much. I mean, I'm sort of like halfway in between Gloucester and Bristol, and I can see a bit of it. But having not lived in the West Country for quite some time, it all starts to meld together for quite a bit. I mean, I can't say as much. No, I haven't really noticed. Probably not as much as there is in South Wales between Cardiff and the likes of Swansea. Oh boy, the people in Cardiff do not think highly of Swansea.
is it mainly because of rugby or industry, something like that?
No, they just think very, very negatively of Swansea and everyone from there. And they're probably not too keen on Newport either.
It shouldn't have much of a rivalry, in my opinion. I mean, when I know about Camry's divisions, it's mainly a north and south divide, with the south being a bit more Anglo-friendly, where you'll hear a lot more people speaking Drwy'r Horth i'r Cafre. Oh, diolch. When you go like up at Aberystwyth and Powys. It's Llanfair
Sorry, I was just well, I can't speak I don't know any Welsh, so I can't really say for sure. Sorry, I was just replying to a question from my my brother on my WhatsApp group I'm in. But no, there is quite a bit. I mean, it's probably not too much and everything, but yeah, I mean, the Cardiff people tend to, again, don't think too highly of Swansea people. I mean, but yeah, it's like talking to people in Scotland between Edinburgh and Glasgow. Probably not too keen on each other, or people from Manchester and Liverpool.
Well, that's certainly another story there. We don't really have that sort of thing down in Kent. I mean, one could argue Brighton, well, that's East Sussex versus all the other seaside towns like Margate, Deal, Sandwich, Dover,
or
Bay.
Western Supermare, which is near where I'm from.
Well, I hear a lot of Bristolians who can't afford to live in Bristol and be around all the Ardmenites and trip hoppers. They've got to go down the Western, which is a bit poor because they can't afford to live in the big city.
Well, most of the seaside towns or coastal towns and seaside towns in Britain are quite poor because they're quite run down now. Because let's face it, they had one industry, beach holidays, but now when you just fly to Ibiza for next to nothing, why bother?
That is a downside there. I mean, I'm still nostalgic for the seaside towns of Blighty, even if they are hotbeds for sort of right-wing Brexit conservatism like Clacton. But I guess, I mean, why stay around like Hastings, which is all cold, wet, and rainy, throughout much of the year when you could go down to Ibiza or Mallorca or Tenerife and
Well,
be in
yeah.
the
Not only
sun?
can you sunbathe all day, but you can stay up all night drinking booze that's cheap as chips. Whereas, like in Britain, and not only will booze be way more expensive, but like you have to deal with British licensing laws.
I never thought of it that way, but I guess you're right.
Well, one of the
Especially with the
reasons
euro being 118 for every pound. So you are right.
well, it's not just that, but they might have less beer duty, but also, I mean, one thing I do actually thank Tony Blair's Labour government for is actually giving us 24-hour drinking, in theory anyway. They loosened up the old licensing law so pubs could stay open later. And God knows that was overdue because our pubs used to close so much earlier, mostly still do, everywhere else in the world. It was fucking embarrassing.
Well, I'm actually all right with pubs being closed at certain hours because you get a rowdy sort, especially even when people go down Weatherspoons. Our one closes at least at like around 11:30 or 12, even on weekends. And also,
Well,
a bit contradictory because they, relaxed the laws on pubs, but they went strict on rave parties, sort of like
they
all
did
night
that.
gatherings on Epping Forest.
Well, no, I mean that was like the Tories thing. But the point I'm getting at, I mean, is that the longer the pub is going for, it's like it leaves more nightlife in the UK. And of course, I mean that's just well, of course, I'm always a quite libertarian-minded person. I like to have more freedom in my country, and restricting drinking hours is quite antithetical towards freedom. Yeah, I don't find it a coincidence also that under Blair's government, that video nasty shit tended to. I mean, I know it's more just fact Furman leaving the BBFC and everything, which we've talked about ad infinitum. But of course, I mean, a lot of that sort of ended as well. And of course, hardcore porn became legal, and it was under Brown that the blasphemy law was abolished. So, you know, say what you will. I mean, they've done some good.
Well, those are positive benefits, especially with the fact that now you can see more tits and gore at 15 works. And with the 12A, that was all passed under Blairism, even if
Yeah,
they did increase the
I don't know
surveillance
how
state.
I don't know how many much effect they had in that, but at least it was but at least it happened. And as someone who came of age around that time, it was a great sense of liberation. So it's no wonder I'm starting to feel sort of nostalgic towards that sort of era. And I was sort of like self-discovering myself and everything. But again, this is all a little. No, it's not really off topic.
Well, it ties into politics and agendas and policies at the end of the day. The most I can tell you on a sort of social level, I don't think those sort of issues might come into the forefront on a legislative level. I mean, they're probably going to still ban cannabis for certainly recreational usage. I don't think
Yeah,
it's
I
going
know.
to
I
be.
mean, well, to be honest, I mean that's why a lot of people might want to vote Lib Dems because they actually are, I think, actually in favour of legalisation of cannabis. But of course, Labour don't seem to act like they would be. I mean, sure. Again, Blair did decrease it briefly to a Class C drug, only for Brown to put it back to Class B. But I mean, yeah, notes on Tony Blair somewhat, but reducing it to a Class C drug is not enough. Nothing short of full legalisation is enough. But I've no fucking idea. I mean, then I just wonder. They're probably not going to listen to us. They're going to listen to middle-aged Daily Mail reading types, and they can all fucking do it. Of course, it's not helped, but of course, the majority of press outlets in this country are very right-wing leaning. You've got like the Daily Mail and the Daily Express. You've also got the Times and the Telegraph, to say nothing of the Sun and the frickin' the Daily Star if they're still going, and all other kind of anything by Rupert Murdoch, who can go fuck himself if he's still alive. But anyway, they can all go fuck themselves. But
Well,
I mean,
in my little rant that I did with you on the last podcast I did, I got all angry about why no one was reading the Socialist Work or the Big Issue. And then, if you look on the internet and Reddit and all that, you would assume that everyone in the UK watches GB News and Talk TV. And I
GB
can't
News, what a joke.
I'm so frustrated with people who are obsessed with GB News and Talk TV as if they're the voices of the British public. They don't speak for me. They don't speak for
but
you.
of course, I know. I mean, they've talked about this many times, that like Britain, I believe at least, is a lot better than let themselves on to be. But we have been dragged down by this lazy right-wing media that just combined with which just brainwashes people, and combined our first past the post system, I've said, makes us seem more right-leaning than we actually are. But I mean, I don't think we are. I think most people in Britain couldn't give two shits where a trans person goes to the toilet. Who cares when you got like bills to pay and you've got like an NHS to actually hopefully it's well funded, especially work for the NHS, which shitloads of people do. But alas, I'm looking at Starmer's.
all stripes.
I'm looking at Starmer's cabinet right now. The deputy prime minister is Angela Rayner, which I'm looking at her policies and everything. She seems kind of based, not massively based, but she identifies as a socialist. So I mean, pretty cool.
Oh, I know why
She
you're
said
looking at her policies. You like her,
No, I'm not.
don't you?
Oh, shut up, you knob. No, I'm not. Okay. Come on, be serious now, okay?
Sorry.
She's a member of Labour Friends of Paris and Middle East, and so she's at least critical of Israel, so she's pretty based there. Doesn't seem to. She's campaigned to vote in the EU, but but of course she's not really massively anti-Brexit, so not much to go with there. She supports transgender rights, says they do not conflict with women's rights, so that's pretty based of her. So I'll give her. She'll get a tepid thumbs up from me. So much. We've got Rachel Reeves as Chancellor of the Exchequer. What's her positions? Blah blah blah. Sports fund dues. Labour Friends of Israel. I'll go fuck herself. David Lammy is Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs. What's his political views? Blah 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 blah. Nothing in there.
I know he was responsible for inquiry on police brutality or racial profiling.
Pretty cool. He's condemned anti-Semitism, so that's pretty good. Not getting much here, but I don't know where he stands on like socialist things or trans rights or not doing war. So, but I don't know where to stand on him. Yvette Cooper is the Secretary of State for the Home Department. Don't know what her she's consistently fought against a no-deal Brexit, but to be fair, fighting against any Brexit is what should be done, but doesn't say what most of our positions are, so I don't know. Secretary of Defense is John Healey. Couldn't give a fuck, to be honest. I mean, oh Christ, he voted in favor of British participation in the Iraq War, so wow, fuck that guy. Now, this is one that looks a bit more interesting. Secretary of State for Justice is Shabana Mahmood.
I don't really know who she is.
I've heard about her. I mean, don't know too much about her. Okay. Faith symbol in life, it drives me to public service, it drives me to blah, blah, blah. So probably devout Muslim, but okay, no, nothing here or there. His mummy said she was concerned that many women have to go to court using to clarify their right to say what it says. that I also agree with. Oh, she's sounds like a transphobe. Oh, not great. So, I mean, it doesn't say a lot where she stands on other things, but if she's a transphobe, I'm not too cool on that. I'm assuming she would at least be in favor of a ceasefire in the Middle East or anything. Yeah, but to be honest, Ed Miliband's a Secretary of State for Energy. I see he got something. Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Liz Kendall. Well, she's a. She looks a bit centrist to me. Not too cool with that. Trade unions. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't go through all of them. But yeah, some of them are looking better. Some of them are looking not so good. I was hoping there might be a few more left-leaning people who I could whisper in Starmer's ear. But I think Angela Rayner might be able to. Lisa Nandy, have I heard good things about her? No. Hey,
I'm
she's
not
a bit,
responding on this because I don't know too
wishy-washy.
much about the
So,
history of these.
well, if you just look up the Starmer ministry or Starmer cabinet, premiership of Keir Starmer, you might give an idea of his cabinet. She's a bit wishy-washy on the whole Israel-Palestine thing. Can't really see where she stands. So again, I mean, I can't really go through all of it, each and every one of them. Secretary of State for Wales is Joe Stevens, who's again my local MP. Oh well, never really know what. No, she does support lowering the voting age to 16, which Labour said they might actually do. Actually, lower the voting age to 16, which I think that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I don't know why not. So yeah, well, I guess we'll just see what we see after the over the next coming years. I mean, I can't see anything radical is going to happen overnight. In fact, most of the things are going to happen gradually, drip by attrition. And if they do win another election, which with a majority like that they should do, but who knows? I mean, let's face it, we thought like we're going to have a Tory government forever and ever after the 2019 election, and in a span of not even 4.5 years, they've gone from an absolute landslide to just being decimated. That has to be the quickest turn of events I've ever seen, but again, so I guess we'll see what we see. But I mean, if they're on for a prolonged period of time, I mean, we'll only feel the change when we compare the end of their tenure to the start of it and see what changes are made and for better or for worse. But just I think what we're going to have to do is just get the NHS back on its feet again. Don't know if they'll scrap voter ID forms, but God knows what they might. And of course they should, even though Starmer said he won't, but they should get us back in the EU, or at least give us enough referendum to see if we want to go back in the EU. But who knows? Who knows if Starmer actually tends to do what he said he would do, or he's just saying whatever he would, getting the right-wing arseholes to leave him alone. But I guess we'll see. I'm still feeling good that the Tories are out. It's a brief respite from the impending doom of what's going on in America, when you can see that, oh boy, Biden is not going to win that election.
I don't think he will, especially with him mumbling and stuttering. And even before that, people are saying that Trump is looking a bit more on top of things than Biden is, even though he was lying his ass off. It shouldn't really have to come down to these two goons, but unfortunately it is, and that's one of the big problems I have. I'm glad to be in the UK where I don't have to deal with those sort of issues, but for tax reasons and also because I'm partly American, I have to. So that always acts as a bit of a problem. And that's the election that I'm perhaps more concerned about, more so than the UK one, because America has so much of an upper hand, and they're our biggest partner, the special relationship. That's the one that's making me a bit more concerned the most. And they say, oh, if Biden, if he's not suitable enough, we'll get Gavin Newsom or someone like that. Well, I was in California in the time I was in America. I can tell you right now, he is not very popular with most people. He's probably with sort of
I'm
urban elite.
surprised.
That's
Well, to be honest,
Hollywood
dude, I mean,
donors.
I mean, again, I hate to interrupt again, but this can't be avoided. I think it's like with. I was comparing voting Labour here in this election to how Americans must have felt voting for Biden in the 2020 election. You don't fucking wanna, but you just feel you've got to. It's like the political equivalent of eating your greens. You just got to do it because otherwise, if you don't, bad shit happens. It's like, as the saying goes, it rubs for New Labour on its skin or it gets for Tories again. It rubs for Biden on its skin or it gets for Trump again. It sucks shit, but I mean, got to tell sometimes I feel like as a voter, I'm being told, if you don't vote for the centrist Neil Hack New Labour, the big scary Tories will come around and inflict austerity again. I mean,
which is a
remember
form of
some point you.
gaslighting in some respects.
Well,
I
you
don't
say
like
that,
that.
but I mean, sometimes you get the impression that's all we got. I mean, during the 2000s, when New Labour were in under Blair and later Brown, and the vibes message I was getting from them is like, well, look, you don't like us? Well, I mean, you're going to miss us if the Tories are back, and you don't want them back in, are you? And, of course, I was 12 when the Tories first got booted out, and I was just sort of, but not really old enough to have great memories of them. But, I mean, I can't help thinking he was saying, told you so, during this last 14 years when it's realised, oh, yeah, having a Tory government really does fucking suck. So we've got no choice but to just vote the Labour Party in just to keep them fucking out.
Failure of FPTP. There's a saying with FPTP is that it helps with centrist candidates, but not entirely, especially when you consider the Overton window has shifted to the right considerably over the past years because of issues like immigration and nationalism. It's almost like you have to sort of play Russian roulette. As far as I'm concerned, the British government at this point should focus on economic concerns more than anything because that's a great unifier. And some of these things directly affect me as well in terms of transport, which I think is important. Rail fares should not cost that much money. They should make accessible routes to where the jobs are. Oh, yes, absolutely. Even bus pass. So I know in Cardiff it's a bit more reliable, but like in Canterbury and stuff, they want like £9 for a bus pass. No. Go up to London on the TfL. London is not cheap. It's like £5.25 per day. Unlimited bus travel. I think in Cardiff it's like £6. You can walk anywhere. I can't do that wherever I am. And not all the good jobs are within my area.
You talk about a 15-minute city. I mean, Cardiff pretty much is a 15-minute city. Hell, some of the streets in Cardiff are just for pedestrians only. It's actually really cool. I think it's really, let's face it, it's good for you. I mean, let's face it. While I did like having a driving license and having a car, it does seem to become more of a prison time with its constant having to, take care of it and take it out to keep the battery ticking over and pay the car, paying the car insurance and everything. It's just, fucking hell. But yeah, that's not really related to. That's a bit off topic. So.
No, but it ties into the economy, and that's very much tied to politics, and then housing as well. People of all economic stripes, they just can't afford it. It's usually like the people who got the houses when they were quite cheap. on mortgages at low rates, pre-stock market crash, that are benefiting the most. Young people don't have that luxury. So if they can fix at least housing, employment, and transport, the big three, in my opinion, then we're getting somewhere. You know, immigration is certainly an issue, as is the issue regarding the Gaza war, but those tend to be quite divisive topics.
Well, that is true. Although it is the Gaza war that's causing Biden to just hemorrhage support in America. So, I mean, to say no one in support cares about the Gaza war is absolute bollocks. I mean, young voters are basically just driven away from anyone who might support the Gaza war. I mean, they were saying actually probably because of the Gaza war, Labour should basically not be voted for. And to be fair, in terms of actual votes, they didn't get that many anyway. And it was votes did go towards the smaller parties, but nonetheless, they didn't really make much odds because again, fucking landslide. But the Tories were very brutally hurt, and that makes me very erect.
That's worse than my Angela Rayner comment. Okay, well, moving on there. But I don't know for you, if you share the same concerns as I do. You seem a little bit more like a civil, social liberal or social progressive than me. I seem more like an economic progressive.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you might care about social progressions because obviously you're gonna have an issue with things like racism and everything because, well, you've got a vested interest in that. But yeah, I mean, as me, I'm just generally a left winger in general. I mean, in my early days, I got a lot of my political views from the likes of Michael Moore or people like Bill Hicks or George Carlin, to say nothing of a load of other people who I left-leaning or liberal celebrities or comedians like Marcus Brigstock or hell, even old school Bill Maher before he went completely off the fucking rails with his anti-woke brigade tirades. Or Jon Stewart's another one. He's still quite cool. So yeah, it's why I don't buy into any of these moral guardian shit because half the time I think that's appeal of being a left wing is that they weren't the ones who would pander to those people. I know it sounds childish, but the right wing was the politics of the squares, the Mary Whitehouse types, and the leftists or the liberals were the cool ones who weren't the kind of people who were trying to take away your violent video games or anything. But although that could just be although you could just be a libertarian and do that. But hey, I don't want people to own guns, and I do want rich people to be taxed. So can't really go in with that. Again, rambly rant, but it's what I've got to say.
Oh, but your concerns are a bit more valid. But for you, you're in a more sort of metropolitan area, meeting people of all stripes. I never really grew up with people from all types of cultures. I was always more sort of rural and suburban, and without giving too much away, my mother's a bit more conservative than me, but she is independent. My father is more progressive than me. I don't get along with him, so my politics are pretty much a bit on shaky ground. Even though, like you, and this is coming a bit weird coming from a '90s born millennial, I was influenced by Michael Moore and a lot of documentaries like Super Size Me, Best in Person, with Spurlock, and who killed the electric car, A Crude Awakening, the oil crash. Those issues still do pertain to me, but I do have my sort of reservations about certain groups on the left who seem to be a little bit too utopian for my liking, or they sometimes may be focused on social issues more so than economic ones, because at the end of the day, economic ones are the ones that are going to put you out on the street and make you get raped or murdered and stabbed. That's the biggest fear that I've got.
Yeah, obviously you need to be focused on the economic issues, but you can go a little bit too much about that and be what's known as a class reductionist. where you end up being like that Jonathan Pye guy talked about, where you focus purely on like class issues and you have a total blind spot to issues of race or gender or sexuality and stuff and all these other things where people are marginalized for factors other than their social economic status. And of course, I mean,
No, but you make a good point.
Exactly. I mean, I know it's a good point. You shouldn't get. I don't want to say identity politics, because that's a real shitty term to use. But a term is usually white liberal or white feminist, where you talk about progress in aspect, but you don't support anything structural that changes it. But at the same time, you don't want to be a. You got to remember that capitalism just sucks and should be dismantled. But of course, you don't want to just be don't be the class reductionist that just only cares about the income inequality and doesn't care about trans rights or LGBTQ rights or racial inequality such as police brutality towards minorities, all that stuff. Because let's face it, if it's just basically populist stuff, I mean, you're going to end up being like the kind of person who votes for Nigel Farage.
No, but it's true. My social issues tend to be a bit more of a mixed bag than anything. If I was prime minister, I would both legalize firearm ownership, responsible firearm ownership, and hunting for wild animals and stuff. But at the same time, get rid of the prison industrial complex and the military industrial complex, which is not benefiting anyone. Certainly, poor people and ethnic minorities were easy
apart
prey.
from the rich capitalists. Yeah, well, obviously the prison military industrial complexes need to be dismantled and destroyed. Obviously, that is part of the, that's again what we say about structural issues and everything. And we need to destroy them. That's why we say a lot of people who talk about, the centrist neoliberals and everything who kind of be white liberals or white feminists like Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Keir Starmer, who spout progressive issues but don't do anything to actually benefit, don't make any structural changes, and don't make billionaires pay their taxes, and just don't know where was I going with that? I mean, it's all we're good. If you just vote for like a symbolic change, you won't get real change.
Well, that's what I've been warning people about. When people got all worked up about Gillette doing that ad that was saying men need to be careful of their masculinity in front of women, and then what's that little Kylie Jenner one with a Pepsi can? She goes through Black Lives Matter rally, gives it to a police officer. That doesn't really work. That's sort of corporate shadowing, mirroring of social issues. It doesn't really benefit the people who actually need that help.
Yeah, I know. Well, every quote unquote woke leftist understands that, because they actually do see through the whole concept of pink washing and all that stuff, just corporate virtue signaling and gaslighting to like use these sort of progressive times to basically sell their products. I mean, a lot of my friends on Facebook and Twitter who I've ended up becoming friends with because I follow them on YouTube. They say all the way through this and everything, and they admitted they wouldn't have voted for Starmer because Starmer was just crap, and they don't like Biden either because he's crap. And of course, it's all very good saying you're not Trump or you're not Boris or you're not Farage, but if you're just like a lesser shade of cunt, I mean, you're still a cunt.
You are. I mean, I'm not going to go out on the street banging pots and pans and doing the blowhorn, saying, "Oh, Keir won, yay!" Because I still am under the belief that no matter who wins into office, they can't achieve everything. There will always be gridlock and other parties to consider that they have to fight against. But it's the right-wing types that make me fear the most, is because when you get the right wing in power, it's very hard to get them out. won't. And I'm worried
Well,
with
yeah, I mean,
France and the US, that Pandora's box is going to be open. And if you think there's going to be all those people on boats trying to come here because they don't like what's occurring in Syria or Somalia, there could very well be French and Americans who want to come to England simply because it seems like we're
Scotland or
more
Wales or Northern Ireland.
progressive. My
Yeah.
apologies there. Or even English people trying to come up to Scotland because you get free university tuition, but you have to be in Scotland for 3 years. That should be national. That affects me because I've got about 13,000 or so in student loan debt. I would have loved to have had that option in Scotland, but because of divorce and family issues, and I was in America at the time, I didn't have the opportunity to go to university and so on and so forth, and I had to pay the price. I didn't even finish. I dropped out. That's really still bothers me. So housing, unemployment, transport, education, particularly university education, those issues need to be solved day one.
Well, yeah. I mean, that hits a nail on the head. It goes without saying. Was there anything I was going to add? I don't know what I was going to add. I don't know what else we can go over without repeating ourselves. I mean, to say what I'm going to say. So to summarize this and otherwise we'll be here all day because we could talk about this all fucking day and we don't want to bore anyone. So, yay, Tories are out. Boo, centrist New Labour rights are in. I mean, could you imagine if this number, or if Labour had this sort of majority with a leader like Corbyn and his ilk in charge?
That'd be utopia. If you thought people on boats are going to come in, because desperation, that would have been even too far. So we thought, now we don't have to live in fear. I know
Yeah.
I'm bringing about the immigration thing into all this, but trust me, people get excited when certain political parties are in power because that thinks they won't be directly affected. And if you're left wing, you see right wing extremism sort of taking on the fold, you just very might well leave your place. There's no home for you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that's true.
Or
I mean,
segregate
Britain,
amongst your
if
own
Britain,
people.
well, I mean, I don't know about that, but I mean, if Britain becomes this slightly more, I guess we're going to be centre right, centre left, whatever, or just centrist place in a sea full of Europe that gets taken over by the far right. I mean, let's face it, the Dutch have finally formed a government, albeit Geert Wilders didn't get to be prime minister, maybe because the king wouldn't appoint him as such. And if Marine Le Pen's party does take over French Parliament, although we'll soon see what happens on Sunday. Although still have to deal with Macron being president. I don't know what's going on with that. Well, we'll see what we see, okay? And maybe will come over Britain. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what goes. So, yay, Tories are out. Boo, oh dear, that it's Starmer's centrist, neutered New Labour. Yay, guess kind of Lib Dems are a bit better. I mean, we'll see what happens. It sucks that basically all the New Labour rights, like the Tony Robson types who hated Corbyn and overly supports Starmer, are now going to feel vindicated because it's like, see, you told you were right, when really Starmer won the election because the Tories handed it to him. I mean, anyone who was in charge of Labour could have won this election. It would have been, like I say, open goal. But just like anyone in the Democrats could have beaten Trump in 2020. I mean, they just handed it to them with their shittiness. But I don't think there's much more else to say, really. You ready to wrap up?
Yeah, on my end, as far as podcasts are concerned, we'll very likely do one when the US election comes up, probably on the day after when the results come in. But that's the one I fear the most, obviously, because America has such a powerful influence on many countries, including our very own. And the most I can tell you is, yes, very many likely of you who are listening to this probably going to vote for Joe Biden if you're in the States. or doing absentee ballots, like I'll be doing, don't take for granted. You keep prodding on your congressman's shoulder to get certain policies enacted that benefit you. Just letting it be blasé and say, oh, because he's got a D next to his name means, oh, he's not that bad. No, that's not going to work. Thank you all for listening.